just the way they built this room is so interesting from that standpoint, right? Because in 2024, they've got a super talented and pretty deep group. And we'll talk about the entire wide receiver room depth chart here in a minute. But like beyond this year, it's about as uncertain as you can get. So like they've done a great job in building this like rent-a-room of guys for Will Levis in this year that is the put up or shut up year for him. Like let's find out if this guy's got the goods. So he can prove that he's the guy, he can develop, and he's got no excuses on that front. But then, if he does that, great. You now kind of have a tricky task ahead of you in next offseason, looking at, okay, Calvin Ridley's back for at least one more year. Tyler Boyd, that rental year is over. We'll have to see how that went. And if we want to, re-sign a 30-year-old slot receiver, slot only guy, DeAndre Hopkins is going to be 32, pushing 33 next year. Do you really want that? Glory Day Sports saying this wide receiver room now can get half off a Golden Corral with their senior citizen discount. Trust me, we're going to talk about that here in a second. But it's a weird situation from looking at the team like long term. But I don't think it's weird bad. I think it's a pretty savvy approach because it allows for, hey, Will Levis just doesn't cut it. It's not going to work. Okay, you can completely reset next year. You're not going to have a Devontae Adams with the Raiders situation where you've got a stud or multiple studs on your roster just kind of wasting away, waiting for some quarterback to save them and probably becoming disgruntled in the process. That's not going to be the case here with the Titans.
Yeah, and I think that's, it, like you said, savvy approach when you consider how the wide receiver position, really, you can build it like that. We've seen this offseason through the cornerback market and through the defensive line market, taking T'Vondre Sweat with the second round pick there, getting J.C. Latham to build up the trenches. That's all picks that are trying to prolong the sustained success of the Titans into 2025 and beyond. With the wide receiver room, you don't really have to play it like that. Like you can, there's always going to be guys who come out of the woodshed and, perform, punch above their weight. And in this case for the Titans, having these guys and not having your guy be one of those Devontae Adams type, be a lockdown guy, is not the end of the world.
Yeah, I agree. Let's take it in this direction, JT. You hear that the age concerns from Glory Day Sports, and that's where the haters are going to be at mentally. Look at how old this room is, and it's true that nobody in the league really has built the wide receiver room like the Titans have. And I went through and actually, I'm not just saying that off the dome. Yeah, there's nobody. No, I went and I tallied it up, and we're going to show you here in a second. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're just listening, rather, it's time to watch because we're going to show you something here in a second that I think you'll find interesting. But I tweeted this out last week when Pretty Ricky, the People's Insider, tweeted out that the Titans would be interested in Tyler Boyd and are going to end up signing him. He was, never wrong, just early, Pretty Ricky, and he was just 5 or 6 days ahead of time. But I said when he said that, because joking or not, when you see that, I'm at the point now where I'm kind of thinking, if I see Pretty Ricky tweet it, I'm thinking it's probably going to happen.
He's kind of on a heater lately. I got to give it to him.
If he doesn't miss, he doesn't miss. So this is not a Pretty Ricky show, but we do like Pretty Ricky. He's like the canary in the coal mine. I won't say he's a rock solid insider. I have no idea where his sources come from.
Yeah, it's fun to watch him get it right.
But when he chirps up, you got to listen. You got to listen. That being said, I quote tweeted that last week, and I, half jokingly was like, "Wow, the Titans are really going to do it. They're going to put together the nursing home wide receiver room of the NFL, or the classic. This is the best wide receiver room of 2019 meme." That's objectively what this is, and a lot of people took issue. Very, very sensitive people took issue. Nursing home. Oh, come on, man. 29 years old, barely 30 years old. If you watch these guys, if you even watch these guys play, turn on the tape, bro. These guys still got it. Relax. Now that the Titans have signed Tyler Boyd, here's my word of advice, Titans fan. Just don't be that dude, right? Don't get all defensive and butthurt over people calling your receiving room old. It's, first of all, it's a bad look, but it's most importantly, they are old. It's true. So don't get upset when somebody says something true to you. Old doesn't mean bad. That's the number one takeaway here. These guys, clearly, if you watched DeAndre Hopkins last year, clearly, if you watched Calvin Ridley last year, clearly, if you watched Tyler Boyd last year, they've still got gas in the tank. And these guys are, from the age perspective, maybe you say, okay, injury is the biggest thing. Sure. Maybe more fragile than some other receiving rooms in terms of their durability. But in terms of their ability on the field when they're healthy, these guys are still dogs, and they're still going to provide something to the Titans that they've not had as a collective wide receiver room in a while here. So if somebody tries to give you a hard time about how washed up these receivers are, just, laugh it off, remind them that these old men put up 2,700 yards combined last year, all in arguably worse situations. And that's something that I think people are going to underlook here, JT. Last year, DeAndre Hopkins, I think there's no arguing, worse situation because he was, we'll go back, like 75 completions to him. The next closest receiver was NWI with 29, if I remember correctly. That's kind of hard when the defense knows the ball is coming to you. That makes it harder on you as a receiver. So he was in a worse situation. Then you go to Tyler Boyd. Who was the name of the quarterback he played with a lot last year?
Browning.
Jake Browning. Thank you. You think what you want about Will Levis. Going from Jake Browning to Will Levis, if you don't think that's an upgrade, then we really see the game differently. And then Calvin Ridley, yes, he was the one. Yes, he was playing with Trevor Lawrence. And depending on who you ask, Trevor Lawrence may very well be a much better quarterback than Will Levis. Some people would disagree with that. I would lean towards Trevor Lawrence is a better quarterback right now than than Will Levis is. But that may not be for long. That's just my personal opinion. That being said, he was the one in that system. If we go back to when we were talking about the possibility of Ridley for the Titans months ago, and JT, you bring up the reception perception profile, and it's like, man, when you look at the way they utilized him, it's not great.
Suspect.
It's not ideal.
Yeah, exactly. You start to question about, I think that was the whole argument. It's like, Calvin had some good spots. Did they use him correctly? Did they know what they had? I don't know. And so then you have to start questioning what you see on tape as well and be like, could he have done more if they just used him correctly?
Right. And so he's that guy. He's the one, but he's the clear one. And just all those things. Like, I think maybe it's a lateral move in terms of his situation from last year, this year. The point being, they put up 2,700 yards last year, all of these old dudes. And they are old. And here's the demonstration of just how old they are, JT. I put my money where my mouth is, and I charted the starting receiver ages for every single team in the league. And if you're watching on YouTube, you may have to zoom in here a little bit, but this is every single team, their top 3 starters at the receiver position, their ages with averages. You notice the Titans are at the top, and it's not particularly close, guys. Like, the next oldest team is Miami, and they only became that like 7 hours ago whenever they signed OBJ. OBJ being 31 and a half years old really skews that number. But not only is I believe, let me go and double check here. The median age, the median average age in the NFL. So in other words, the average age of a wide receiver room starters is 25.6 years old. The Titans are sitting at a pretty 30.2 years old. They're the only team in the league to average over 30 years old with their 3 starting wide receivers. And they're the only team not the only team. Wait, double checking. No, they are. They're the only team in the league to average over 30 years old as their starting receiver group. And they're the only team in the league that does not have at least one starting receiver that is 26 years old or younger. Their youngest guy is Calvin Ridley, who is 29.3 years old. So they don't like that, their fourth guy, if Treylon Burks sticks around, and that's an if we'll talk about in a minute, he's the first point of youth when you go down the Titans depth chart at receiver now. Is that necessarily a bad thing? No, because as we've talked about, the way they built this roster, this group is specifically designed to enhance Will Levis this year, give him a cushy situation, see what they've got, and then work from there, and then build maybe more of a long-term view for this team going forward. But they are old. And I think the haters are going to have a point here in saying, man, can you really hype up that receiver room when, yeah, they're good, but you could argue at least 2 of them, maybe all 3 of them are over the hill. They're on decline, whatever that looks like. And they are all injury risks because they're on, nearing or are already on the wrong side of 30.
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, as Derek points out in the comments, Ridley is 25. Ask him, on paper.
That's a great point.
So
I should have put spiritual age on there. Not
we could have done that as well. And, your argument would be totally wrecked there then. But I think when you look at especially Tyler Boyd from this standpoint, Calvin Ridley, I mean, when you talk about Calvin Ridley and you look back at his history, it's really just the suspension. Like he has never been a guy who has had injury concerns, or anything like that. It's just that he had to take time off because he was betting on the game of football, and like that's
Well,
it.
no,
Like
it was mental health, which was a
true.
real reason.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then it was betting, which was also real, but a much worse reason. Yeah.
Yes, but I mean, like you said, in the last 3 seasons, Tyler Boyd has played at least 15 games. I mean, you could look at it last year when even without Joe Burrow at the helm, they had Jamar Chase and T. Higgins both go down for some time, and Tyler Boyd was able to step up in those games. I believe in 6 games where either Jamar Chase or T. Higgins missed, he had 26 receptions for about just under 300 yards in those
Mhm.
games, including one game against the Houston Texans where he
You said
went
that was
off.
6 games.
6 games, yes.
Okay.
And he had one game against Houston where he was the leading receiver, even with Jamar Chase there. He had 8 receptions for 112 yards in that game. Like, so not to say
Volume.
like that he can still
How
do it.
can I ask you? You may not know this off the top of your head, but of those 6 games, those 6, he was the number 1 receiver, right? That's the criteria here.
Well, yeah, either Jamar Chase or T. Higgins
Oh,
was
either.
out.
So one or the other. Okay. How many of those was without Joe Burrow? It was the majority of them, right? Or no?
Yeah, I can go check real quick, but I know it was
Because they started the season with a healthy T and with a healthy Jamar, correct? And then they
yeah,
both went
so
down some
it
point
was
later in the season.
I believe it was, he played week 10, 11, and 12 were the 3 big weeks that T. Higgins was out, which I think would put it right around where Joe Burrow made his exit, like in one of those games.